2-2. All right, dudes. We are live once again. I'm just going to do some sharing here. Please share this stream. Make sure you like and subscribe to the new channel, the Pangburn Offensive. Oh, yeah. Let's send a little tweet out. Ask me anything. There we go. Jackety Jack Jack, don't come back. Facebook. Actually, I'll go live on the Pangburn page on Facebook. What up? What up? Promoting the new channel, guys. So please, please, please. Oh. Your post has been successfully published on your page. Okay. I'll cross post there. Maybe they'll kick me off. Just doing my shares, guys, and then we'll get rocking here. Of course, hardly anyone knows about our new channel. I've been doing my best to promote it. Now I got to post on the old one. Let's go to community tab. Feel free to ask me anything, guys, when you get into the room. Just got to make this post. We are live. Okay, we'll use that. That'll help promote. Right on. I'm going to go to perfect. Right on. Kevin Chaos. Share the Discord. You can just, Kevin, you can drop the link in the link. Never. I'm going to drop it right now. You can actually just drop it in like this. So you just create an invite link. Drop a like when you get into the room, guys. I really appreciate it. Feel free to ask me anything. Drop any question that's on your mind. Anything you want. I'm just getting things rolling here. I'm going to create live stream on Facebook as well. I got my new balls to the walls internet rocking now, so at the new Pangburn Offensive channel, you can ask anything. We don't have to worry about being demonetized or anything like that over here. I am currently in a battle with YouTube, of course, most of you know, to get the main channel remonetized. That is one of the reasons why we... Yeah, it is wizardry, isn't it? Copy, paste. Okay, so I want to go boom. Why is that there like that? Honestly, can I just... Wow, there's something wrong with this. There we go. Ask me anything. We are live. Okay. Ask me anything. We are live. Cross post to more pages. What's new out in the world, guys? I see the Derek Chauvin trial is happening right now. Of course, he is being charged with the murder of George Floyd. You know, I think technically George Floyd died of fentanyl overdose, but what the argument that's being made is that Derek Chauvin contributed to this killing. What other pages am I going to share this to? Okay, all of them. Why not share it to the music division? Nah, I'll keep the music division page out of it. Why not the foundation? War of Ideas. Save. Welcome. All right. Going live on Facebook. 2. Of course, Facebook isn't going to be able to hear a damn thing. What if... See, I thought... I don't know. Maybe that just doesn't work that way. I wish I could somehow... Okay, cool. So now we're going to go live on the Face of Crack. Randolph Richardson, welcome to the room.
Hello, Travis. How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Yeah, doing well.
I see you've been engaging in some debates.
What's today's topic? I just tuned in.
It's just an AMA today, so you can ask me anything, and we can roll in a conversation anywhere anyone wants to go. I see you've been engaging in some debates.
Sorry, for some reason I'm having some audio issues here. I'm going to try to change to a wired connection.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe it's me. Yeah. Just see if that does it. I might get disconnected for a moment, but won't be long.
Yeah, no worries.
Sometimes neighbors running microwave ovens interfere with wireless signals.
Yeah, totally, man. I used to, in a place I used to live in, every time you'd fire up the microwave, Wi-Fi dropped instantly. If you guys are jumping in on Facebook, you can drop your question here on Facebook, or you can join us live on YouTube, or even better yet, you can jump on the open mic to ask me a question live on the air on Discord. And I'll give you guys the Discord link right now on Facebook. Here we go. You can chat with me live on Discord here.
Well, this works better. I can hear you clearly now. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying. I see you've been engaging in some debates recently.
Oh yeah, my two favorite ones recently was one with Will. I forgot his last name offhand here. He's a Calvinist, and that one I felt went very well. He's a very cordial fellow, so I feel that it was constructive. And the other one was Ben. What was his last name? It's been a while now, but Ben Fisher. And he runs a ministry, and although he didn't really present anything to promote or defend his or justify his position, I felt that the conversation, we ventured into a lot of interesting, not quite rabbit holes, but a lot of interesting subtopics. A lot of subtopics I actually was really for many years wanting to discuss with somebody. It's just minor stuff and interesting hypothetical things, and it was great. It was fantastic. He's even though I feel that he didn't end up pushing his side of things very well. Interesting thing about Ben Fisher, he's running a ministry, a Christian one, obviously, and for anybody who's seen it, seen that debate, he has this idea that he can debunk skepticism, and
Good
it's
God.
very yeah. You should get him on and explore that with him. That would be really interesting.
I would be able to show him very quickly how, the skepticism, the mechanism we use to determine, to separate bullshit from reality. The same thing I can give him the wiping your ass example, and I will show how he is a skeptic.
What I would suggest with him, because he's actually a really nice fellow. I really found him to be quite cordial. Use a nice approach with him. Give him lots of time to talk and explain his ideas, and use a nice, friendly, gentle approach. I think you'll do really well with him. I think you'll enjoy it. I'll try to hook you guys up on Twitter and see if there's a way to get you guys talking, because I think that'd be a really interesting show.
Cool.
Especially as I'm looking at your Discord here and I see test your skepticism. It'll be, I think it's right up your alley.
By the way, everyone, I am going to be bringing back the Sunday call-in show. We will be up and live this week. I've just been so busy with other things. There's a lot of big things being planned for 2022 that I'm really excited about. But literally all of my waking moments have been, trying to keep these daily discussions going on Discord, trying to get my first book finished out there while I'm also working on the other two books, which will be short, by the way, these books. But and then any extra time has been, booking some podcast guests and things like that. But yes, the call-in show will be coming back. So this is a good opportunity, Randolph, for people like that to call in and have one-on-ones with me. Quick announcement, guys.
I'm thinking for you to have like a special episode as he's your guest, and you're doing the whole thing with him. So he's got quite a long thing that I think wouldn't really be doing justice to the ideas he has if he was just a caller. It'd be like that would be a special kind of episode. I think would be good for you.
So hearing Randolph off the get-go that he has a problem with skepticism, I'm not sure how robust of a conversation we're going to be able to have, but I've had great conversations with people who do have problems with skepticism, or at least don't use skepticism or describe their uses of skepticism how I see them using it.
Well, so when I was in the most recent debate I was on with Modern Day Debate, John Maddox, my interlocutor, was completely focused on semantics of definitions, which is not where I wanted to go with it, but it ended up where it was. And if you look at the comments on the YouTube videos, there's people who are a lot of people were very dissatisfied with that. Right. But
those conversations, those conversations can really get it can really drain someone's interest very quickly, I think.
Yeah. Like if somebody wants to spend 5 minutes on definitions, fine. But that's about all I want to do with it, because I don't think it's fair to the audience when that's not what the topic is focused on, that he keep bringing it back to that. So, and I did tell him that I think that was really not a good idea. But the thing was, like, he's saying, "Oh, you're a skeptic," and I said, "No, I don't consider myself a proper skeptic. I strive to be, but I don't think of myself as one, because and that's the approach that I take with it." And talking to you, because you focus so much on skepticism, what are your thoughts on my attitude on this?
Well, I would say that, skepticism is the mechanism we use to determine bullshit from reality. And and so I'm sure you're interested. You seem very interested in doing that, correct?
Oh yeah, like I say, I strive to be a proper skeptic, but I don't think I'm an expert in skepticism. I think I still have a lot to learn.
Right. Well,
That's
I
my
think
attitude.
so. I'll give you a couple things I say about skepticism that I think are helpful. So I'll start again with skepticism is the mechanism we use to determine bullshit from reality,
I agree with you.
and separate bullshit from reality. And then after that, I say the act of questioning and continuing to question anything. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of saying everything. So they'll go around questioning every single scientific consensus there is out there. And sorry, Randolph, could you mute in between just because I'm getting a little bit of feedback?
I can mute.
Yeah. Thanks. So I think if people question and continue to question everything, they will go mad. So I think, and I think when you apply skepticism to that process of questioning everything, you will actually realize that I'm not going to be able to question everything. So it's not a realistic goal, but a realistic goal would be to question anything. That means any claim that comes up, regardless of what people tell you, people around you tell you, don't question that thing. Well, that's an indicator that you have an enemy of skepticism. Whenever someone says you cannot question these things or that thing or the other.
That's a red flag. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a red flag for a skeptic, for someone who's trying to separate bullshit from reality. So I think in my 5 mechanisms of what I think people need to refine in order to clarify their mind, skepticism is actually the babysitter of everything. So you will have, you'll have the scientific
Survival.
You'll have the scientific method that actually sorts out what is going on in reality. So you'll have the method and the consensus, which is a beautiful thing. And we all have access to the consensus with the internet, which is great. So that should take care of clarifying what is going on in reality. And then, of course, we have the other side of this, which is the what ought to be. How do you determine or how do you solve moral dilemmas? And this means that people need to clarify what their moral foundation is. How are they making these moral decisions? What is at the fundamental basis of it? And a lot of people don't realize, even secular people, that they are starting off with some presuppositions. And most secular people will agree to these two, which is, life is preferential to death and health is preferential to sickness. So those two are
You're breaking up now. Could you repeat that? You just broke up on me here.
Oh, are you hearing me okay? Other people in the room, or is it just Randolph's end, or was I breaking up a bit? I just want to make sure see if it's Randolph.
I'm on a wired connection now, but I can hear you okay now.
Scott, you're hearing clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and just make sure you mute in between, Randolph, because I'm still getting some weird in and outs from your mic. So yeah, when it comes to your moral foundation, how are you solving moral dilemmas and sorting out what your morality, the presuppositions you're willing to make based on your, your moral foundation and what's born out of that. So sorting that out, clarifying that, and then checking in and putting your current moral foundation up against the law of the land. How is your moral foundation matching up to the law of the land? And if there's a discrepancy there where you think that it's okay to kill someone's child if they kill your child, then your eye for an eye morality isn't going to survive in Western culture or in most cultures nowadays. So then you have clarified that you have a discrepancy that's likely going to lead you to unwellness. So my moral foundation, the best one I have come up with in my life so far, is maximizing well-being for myself and those around me. And those around me is the thing that is variable, because you could be at a grocery store and you can have a gunman coming into the grocery store, and all of a sudden you have someone who is seeking to harm the well-being of others around you. Now, how can I help them? Help them escape. Help take out the gunman if you can. So when you apply this maximizing well-being for myself and those around me, it actually is, it is to be the absolute fundamental rule and guiding principle of my whole moral foundation. And of course, with subjective moral foundations, which they all are as far as I can tell, no one's ever demonstrated that there's any objective morality. That is to say, anything intrinsically wrong or intrinsically bad. Some people would be like, rape is bad in any case. It's like, no, it just isn't. We have cultures throughout history that have used rape and accepted rape as part of their culture. So this stuff is, that doesn't mean we can't have right or wrong answers and come up with better things, but that only works if you have a moral foundation that is operating in the best interest of the person who's being raped.
I agree with you. I think a better example for the non-consensual sex one you're talking about there is like with rape. It's probably looking at the BDSM community. There are people who go to great lengths to have their rape fantasies come to life.
Yeah.
And as some of them, it gets so convoluted that what they want it to be, that they're actually it's happening at a later date that they don't know it'll happen.
Yep.
And then it's just, it gets very complex, but it's
so
to satisfy that fantasy.
But that's still consensual, right?
Yeah, and that's and the well-being thing is like being violated is actually not good for your well-being, but in the larger picture of things, they want to go through that experience because there's that masochistic tendency there. So for me, my foundation, I would say, is not stable. For moral foundation, there are basic things. I'm not going to kill people. I do have a stable foundation for things like that. What I've found works very well for me and for the people around me, as far as I can discern, is John Rawls' veil of ignorance concept from his book, A Theory of Justice, which is originally intended for lawmakers. But and the idea is that, for people who don't know, is that, or aren't aware of it, is that the lawmaker will consider all the different possible ways, different people within society who could be affected by these laws that they're about to make. And one of the exercises they do to try to push that is to assume, okay, I'm a lawmaker, and I need to think about this law in terms of how do I design it to be fair for everybody as much as I possibly can. Yeah. One of the mental exercises I can do is to think about what happens if I am randomly thrown into society and I don't know what my role is going to be. I don't know what my sex will be. I don't know what my race will be. I don't know other characters. I don't know if I'll be dealing with a debilitating disease or if I'll be an amputee or different things like that. So it's the idea is to try to think of as many different possibilities as possible so that no one will be adversely affected by these new laws that are going into place. So I try to use this line of thinking in determining my own personal decisions on things that could affect other people.
Okay. So
I don't know how well I'm doing it, but I do try, and right. I do find this possible. It's not the only solution. I'm not saying it is.
So with regards to, I'll give you the reason why I seek to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. With that, and by well-being, because it's a common straw man of this, people will be like, well, that everyone's gonna have their own idea of what it means to be well. It's like, no, that's not the well-being I'm talking about. I'm talking about the well-being that we measure at the hospital, in the doctor's office. I'm talking about demonstrable well-being. not anything someone's going to make up. Neurosurgeons don't walk into neurosurgery and just make up what they think is going to be the best approach with regards to this patient's well-being when we're going into neurosurgery. It's based on demonstration, what is actually demonstrated to be best in this scenario to give this patient the best chance to be well. So that's what well-being means. So you use science to actually inform your subjective moral foundation. And what you're informing really is you're saying that, okay, let's look at the presuppositions of maximizing well-being, life is preferential to death and health is preferential to sickness. So you look at those two things and you say, what are some ways that I can objectively test this? Well, we can actually look to science for this and say, we objectively know that an all-carrot diet is not the best diet for a human being. Like we know that. We can demonstrate it. We can demonstrate what the human body needs to be well. If we eliminated all protein from the human diet, and that includes anywhere where you're going to get protein from, that's not a diet that is going to lead to wellness. So it's the same process that MDs, your GP, surgeons, everyone who's working at the hospital to make you more well than you were when you came in. They are using objective findings of medical science. So that's the well-being I'm talking about. And so far, it is the best system I can find that incorporates the objectivity of the scientific method, and that allows me to inform my subjective moral foundation. And so
I agree. I take the same view.
Right. So now you've dealt with the is and the ought. Now the fun gets to happen. And we already talked about earlier that skepticism is the babysitter of all of this stuff. It's going to question and continue to question anything within these mechanisms. So we've already taken care of the is and the ought. Okay. So we've clarified those things. Now we get to the real fun. Scientific and artistic inspiration. And I put these in meters out of 10. What inspires you artistically? What inspires you scientifically? So we can look at these things and say, because ultimately when we're looking at people who have a hard time getting up off the couch, having a hard time getting out there into the dating world, even though it's something they want, there are inspirational powers that are lacking in their life. So having conversations, clarifying and identifying where they're garnering some artistic and scientific inspiration in their life is important. So scientific inspiration, as an example, things like going out and discovering nature, going out into nature is an example. And you might even get some artistic inspiration out of that as well, because these aren't just like mutually exclusive. So you can, and then on the artistic inspiration realm, a lot of people will be like, well, I listen to music, I watch my favorite Netflix series, I go to concerts and yada, yada, yada. But then you start realizing that they're still having a problem with inspiration because they're not practicing anything. They're not creating anything. That's going to get them from a 7 to a 10. They have to be producing and sharing what they produce. Like this is what I like to promote to people, even if they're not good at drawing, even if they're not good at woodwork, even if they're not good at sports, getting out there and seizing the opportunity to acquire some artistic inspiration out of these many different opportunities. Sorry, I just got a bunch of questions coming in as well. So now that you have, you've clarified what your artistic and scientific inspiration is. You've dealt with the is and the ought, and now you have skepticism checking in with it all. Now that you've clarified the mind, then it's going to be clear for you what to do next. This is my argument. If you go through this process of identifying the inspirations, the things that really do drive you, the things that really spark your interest, it's going to start dropping into line your goals, your next steps. And I know DSeb99, you just asked, you can have all the inspiration in the world, but if you don't have a goal in the mind, it means nothing. Yes, so that's the next step. A lot of people think that the first step is like, come up with some goals that you have. No. We got to start way more fundamental than that. You got to get these mechanisms working and clarified before you start moving into these areas. And rules, like the Jordan Peterson rules for life, like these things are way, way after. They're not fundamental at all. And in fact, this top-down rules system, I think...
Jordan Peterson's, I'm planning to do a video about his 12 rules of life, because I think that there are quite a few problems with them. I don't remember them offhand, but I've made notes. And I actually do want to have a formal debate with Dr. Jordan Peterson, because he stated that all atheists are Christians, but that we just don't know it. And of course, I disagree with him on that, and I'd like to get into that. Now, if I do get to debate with him, I definitely will be reading Crime and Punishment before I do that. Do a little bit of important research there, because he favors that book a lot, and I want to be able to interact with him on terms that he often discusses in. So, but I think that would be an interesting one, from my opinion.
Yeah,
an interesting comment to have with him.
I think it's an ancient approach to the human condition of handing these rules down. I think it's I don't think it's helpful. I think you need to clarify these mechanisms. And Jordan's got all the problems in the world as primarily a cynic, because he even scoffs at skepticism. Like he said to Matt Dillahunty, like, well, nothing is self-evident to the skeptic. It's like, so what? Like, you don't have, like, nothing is self-evident to you, Jordan.
I would like for him to explain why things being self-evident is so important.
Right, and people get all screwed up about this, and religious thinkers do as well when they start talking about, like, I need to be 100% certain about things, and I'm like, well, I know you want to feel that way, but I'm not sure that you can be about anything. Hey,
I'm settled for a high percentage.
Yeah, like 99.99999 about things like Descartes saying, I think, therefore I am. You don't have to buy that to 100% certainty. Josh Steen, I wanted to welcome you. It looks like you had a question here. You want to ask it? Jostein?
He's muted. Maybe he doesn't realize.
Yeah, you're muted, brother. Just give him a second. I'm going to take a question on Jace says.
I have to call a client. I'll be right back. I'm just going to leave this muted for now. But no I'll be back probably.
Yeah.
But I'm going to listen in the background while I'm on hold with them and stuff.
Cool. Justine.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Killian.
Listen, if let's say the world was flat.
Yeah.
What would anyone, including the government, gain from hiding that?
It's a good question for flat.
I love this question.
What would it matter if it actually ended up being true and we did why wouldn't they just be like, here's the ice wall, guys, the Earth's flat, congratulations, we're done.
This is the perfect question for the alien people too. Like the people.
I'm the alien person, except well, I don't think they visited Earth.
Right.
I think they exist out there. I just don't think they've visited Earth.
Well,
them existing out there is a mathematical probability, but I don't think they've come here.
It's 99.9999 on the plausibility meter,
Right.
that
Exactly.
life of some kind out there. And I think that's the Drake equation, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
yeah, definitely
using as a frame of reference.
So I just wanted to answer Jostine's question. If you mean well-being to be good health, then why not use the term good health? Well, because look, here's the difference between well-being and good health. People will confuse good health to mean that like drinking alcohol is unhealthy, so you shouldn't drink alcohol. But alcohol can make you well. So if you were to open up like a health textbook and say, is it healthy to drink alcohol? And fundamentally the answer usually will be no, but really the answer should be, and if it was, perhaps we could use good health, should be the psychological benefits from the use of alcohol, which includes some of the experiences, tend to be quite positive for human psychological states. And obviously that's using in moderation. And you can make that argument for even using mushrooms or like, some things in moderation they aren't going to harm the person in any real measurable sense. But they are going to provide, some potentially some beneficial experience from a clinical psychological standpoint, like sugar, right? Like a lot of salt. So people get hung up on this well-being term, and they they scoff at it, and I hear no good arguments as to why we shouldn't use well-being. I think well-being just means the pursuit of being well. I think it's the perfect word. And I don't get hung up on terms and words too much, but whatever I'm talking about when I say well-being, if you want to say, oh, well, you should be saying maximize good health, I would need you to demonstrate how that usage is more accurate than well-being. Because this happens with people all the time, like with like the term atheism, they want to say, well, you shouldn't use atheist, you should use lack of belief in God. You shouldn't just use that word because it's got all this weird things attached to it. But I can say the same thing about God. You shouldn't be using the God term. And actually, in my conversation with Michio Kaku on April 9th, one of the next week, actually, one of the big questions I'll have for him is why use God? Why invoke God in your
physicist?
Yeah. Why invoke God in your new book, The God Equation? Why call it the God Equation when there's so much attached to that term and it's not necessary?
Actually, that's an interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of terms that he could use that are equivalent to God that people don't use regularly associated with that would mean the exact same thing, but wouldn't garner that same type of gut reaction when people look at it.
Well,
like you could call it like the primordial equation.
Right. Well,
the Titan
thing,
equation.
Yeah, but the thing is,
that's what I'm saying.
The thing that's frustrating, Jack, is that he in the book says, okay, the title's going to be the God Equation, and then in the subtitle, it's like the pursuit for a theory of everything, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but why not just call the book that? Like, why? I understand sensationalism and marketing and things like that, but when you're writing a book of this importance with regards to, the pursuit of the fundamental unifying theory of everything, the grand unifying theory, call it what it is.
I think honestly,
God is not a scientific term to be invoked.
It sounds like a marketing tactic for sure.
100%. Like, you can see, like, if you read all the comments, and I mean, this guy, like Michio Kaku, is super famous. He's got 4.5 million followers on Facebook.
I've watched his videos on string theory and multiverse theory.
Yeah, and I have a lot to talk to him about string theory, and the hypothetical
That's my favorite one.
vibrating strings. I know these guys. Some of these guys have spent their whole careers talking about these hypothetical strings, and I have a lot of questions as to like, do they like what like are they always just going to say like we don't have like are they fundamentally making a strings of the gaps argument that as we look closer and closer towards the Planck length, they're going to say, no, we got to go deeper to find the strings. We got to go deeper to find the strings. Like at what point do they say, oh, I guess the hypothetical strings just don't exist?
I don't know. I get to the point when it comes to that specific topic where I get to where the exact point where after they've invented all these extra dimensions for it, that it fits in with Einstein's relativity. As soon as it hits that, I'm like, okay, that's something. And then after that, I don't really know.
Well,
like that's I hit that point and I'm like, that's really cool, and I really like that concept starting here. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like there hasn't been really anything to show for after that too much.
My theory of everything, which is going to be my third book that I release, is I approach this problem from a state perspective as opposed to like a particulate perspective of trying to find some, unifying particulate like thing like vibrating strings. Like I'm not sure that we have to go there to unify everything. But I won't divulge too much into it. But there's my state of potential theory is based on the foundation that everything is a state of potential.
Right.
And the more you look into quantum mechanics, it seems as though
you're saying the state of things being potential could supersede like space, matter.
Yeah,
the fact that stuff exists means little to the state of potential that it has.
Well, yeah, like
okay.
Well, let me put it this way, Jack. When I think of the fact that something like an imagination exists, where we can or the fact that infinity exists, right? So it's like we can imagine an infinite amount of things. Because you can always add, let's say we're imagining one line. You can always add another line, right? So logically, it's like logically we can always add another line to that line. So as soon as someone says, this is the biggest number that could ever be, you can add another digit, right? Or plus one,
exactly.
Right? So that what you need to do with the grand unifying theory is, I think, unify that fact about reality, which is the realm of possibility, with the realm of probability and plausibility, the realm of scientific measurement. So you're really unifying, relativity, quantum mechanics, and the realm of possibility. Which I think that is the true unifying theory, and a lot of people would be like, well, what is the measurable, quantifiable, physical representation of possibility? Well, that's a very interesting question. Art is a pretty good answer.
That's interesting. I like the way that you. Okay, okay, keep going.
That's that's my.
Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, no worries. But that's these are the grand unifying theory ought to, if it's going to claim to be grand and absolute, it must merge these two facts about reality. Life throws an extra wrench in this and what life is capable of. And I guess fundamentally what brains are capable of, whether it be let's say mind, whether it be the mind of an ant, if you can go there, versus the mind of a macaque, versus the mind of, an ape, and maybe a mind of a super intelligent octopus on a distant moon, or maybe on Europa, who have created ways to hide the detection of themselves. You know, it's these are fun things to think about. I think Europa, I think we might find some, you know, at least some nucleotides on Europa. Okay, we got some more questions on YouTube here. Someone said, metaphorical substrate.
I've got to correct them. It's metaphoric substrate.
Let's see. What is your education history past? So my formal education is in entertainment. So live event production, which obviously I used a lot of those skills, or I use a lot of those skills when I produce my live discussions, and as a performer, as an actor, I worked as an actor in my early 20s on various projects, and I did a lot of performing, you know, through high school, through university, and outside university. So that was my formal education, as far as like what I was signed up to do. But I'm an autodidact, so I don't learn in the way that most people learn from, you know, teachers teaching me. I'm a self-learner. I have to teach myself. That's just been true throughout my whole life. And that's what an autodidact is. Autodidactism. Autodidacts. That's what, you know, if you have found your whole life that you cannot really learn something unless you're able to teach yourself, then you're likely an autodidact. So with regards to anything that takes focused learning and that's not communal, I would consider things like theater, live theater, which I've done a lot of training in, is very communal. You need other people there. You need to play with others in that discipline. But in something like, you know, learning the standard model, delving into quantum mechanics and some of the deeper unanswered questions of cosmology, that's all stuff I had to be alone, thinking, reading, trying to discover. So I would always go through the process of, I find a lot of excitement and I get a lot of pleasure out of trying to discover and interpret a system before I read about what it is. So I want to test how good my intuitions are or can be. So that's something I've always loved to do, and I've done it ever since I was little. You know, this idea of everything being made up of the world of the very, very small, the various forces that are at play. You know, we have here's a funny thing about gravity. People think about gravity as though it's this very strong force, but a mosquito is stronger than the whole gravitational pull of this planet. A mosquito is stronger. My pinky finger is stronger. So gravity is the weakest of all forces. And then we got the electromagnetic force after that. Electromagnetism. And then after that, we got the weak force. And then after that, we have the strong force. The force of gluons that keeps the world of the very, very small together. But trying to think of these forces before you understand what they are, you know, instead of going through life trying to figure out what to think so that you have the right answer, start fundamentally with how to think. And once you get the how to think mastered, you start you stop taking leaps in logic. You stop engaging in circular logic. You just you start from the premise of I know nothing. And let's see how well my intuition or how much my how to think can lead me to what actually is. And then you can obviously test your answers after that.
This is why I think it's so important for philosophy, logic, and critical thinking to start being taught right from kindergarten. It can be like a half hour a week kind of thing, and even at kindergarten level, I can keep this stuff very simple and gradually improve it over throughout the whole thing. Imagine if our public school system had a once a week, half hour or hour long class on these topics. How much better society could be from this?
Yeah, it's great that you say that. I've been working kind of as a little side project for the last 2 years on a proposal for the Canadian government to have skepticism as part of the curriculum, that part of the daily exercise. There would be a 15-minute daily exercise in skepticism every day, all through high school. So yes, we have to give up 15 minutes a day, but these would be fun exercises to test the skepticism of the children. And
I love this.
Yeah,
I love this, man.
Yeah.
You're preaching to me. A whole choir is how I feel I am responding to this. If I can be helpful, please let me know. Contact me offline. I'll be happy to take a look over it and help improve it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I'd be delighted to, because I think, the more people you have looking at it, maybe we can even add a little bit to it. But I would want to keep it right on line with what you're saying. I just, but maybe I'll see something that you haven't.
Of course.
I come from a background of having 2 types of dyslexia and other stuff. So going through the public school system was, for me, went to different schools. Some were very good and some not so good. And it really boiled down to the quality of the teachers and the principal. Right. So it's just, I've got some perspectives that might be of help to formulating this, I hope.
Joe Steen, what do you got?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, since I'm sure you know about it, but what you're talking about here sounds a lot like the concept they called trivium.
Trivium? I'm not sure if I've ever heard of that.
You have not?
I'm going to look this up. It's a band.
Well, it's band too, but the concept is a term they use for what they also call a classical education, the trivium.
Okay. An introductory curriculum at a medieval university involving the study of grammar, rhetoric, and logic.
Yes.
So my proposition is more based in skepticism, right? And logic is a tool that the mechanism of skepticism will use, but fundamentally, like in my proposal, starting at kindergarten, it will be questions like, why is blue not red?
The thing with the trivium is, from how I understand, that in order to actually formulate a good argument and thinking into language, you first have to actually understand the words you use.
Sure.
Being why you have grammar.
Yep.
And then logic, how to actually put them together in a coherent way.
Sure. And of course, that is a really important part of education. And I think we handle grammar and language quite well in education in general. We have English studies for kids and reading and writing all through our, riddled through our education system. So that's taken care of, and rhetoric to some degree in English. Logic, not so much. Like there is a big hole in philosophy, and logic would be a part of how people understand what to use to determine whether something is sound or not. Sound logic versus unsound logic. So that would definitely be something you would go through in these skepticism tests with children. But the problem is you need to write a curriculum that educators who don't know a damn thing about skepticism will be able to understand the basic model of what this one lesson is trying to deliver, and be able to deliver that constructively to children.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is another thing, though, that they take too early in a sense, because the trivium is the basis, and there's also to build upon that, which is later called quadrivium, which includes music and math and other things that you also start with in that sense too early from that perspective. Seeing as the trivium and the quadrivium based on that, you need to learn those first in order to actually better understand the other that comes after.
So Jostine, well, I'll tell you one thing. This is only step one for me. I want to see skepticism taken as seriously or more seriously than maths, than history, and I'll tell you why. Because if a child does not know how to think properly, all of this shit is a waste of time.
Exactly.
Like committing what year this particular war happened, when we have the full knowledge of this located on the internet now. Our education system it ought to focus on how to think. And I know a lot of people, scientists, philosophers, have been saying this for a long time, but it's about time we start implementing the damn thing. What up, Bruce? What up, Scott? What up, Dal?
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, Derry?
All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Derry. Oh, man.
I think that's interesting. The discussion that always comes up around teaching people history and why it's relevant today, things like that. Mm-hmm. I think it is relevant if you're able to give context around why it's relevant to know that sort of thing. So, like having timelines and or context around history requires. So someone that knows dates is fair, but someone that understands dates and how they affected whatever topic is relevant. That's really, but you first have to start somewhere. So it's kind of like you don't necessarily need to know your times tables if you have a calculator, but knowing them and then using them in context without having to start somewhere else gives you a giant breadth of foundation. So it's like, I understand the need to, like, rote learning can be stupid, but if you get it done early and quickly, you can move on to logical use of the rote learning,
Sure. And that's all up to, like, you don't want to throw all of this away, because there's, like you mentioned, with multiplication, addition, subtraction, algebra, like all of these things have algebra less, but most of these things have practical usages in life. And I just want us to get more pragmatic with education, and I think it starts with making sure that we deal with what I see to be the most important thing. Like, if we had to pick the most important thing that we have to educate children on in a school setting, it has to be how to think. And some people would say, "Oh, well, don't they get some of that already as how the education system is set up right now?" And I would say, I think they're getting it as like a byproduct, but it's not the product that's being taught. Like they are, a lot of students are getting some strong doses of that if they have a good teacher, but it just doesn't seem to be in the curriculum. It's like in social studies class, it'll be like, "Oh, and why do you think Hitler made this move instead of this move. Well, we know that because we have this document in society, he did it because of this. Now make sure you memorize this because it's going to be on the test.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. It can be useless in isolation. But also I think even the skill of learning to memorize, that skill alone can be useful.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Yep. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like history, but if we're going to have them learn to memorize, why not memorize something important?
Yeah. Yeah. Memory
recall.
Memory recall is important, and it'll scale pretty high on the level of things that are important. Like you want to remember, the rules of the road when you're driving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In U.S. schools, which are generally subject to state school board, subordinate local control, and with some federal funding and rights enforcement that's far less significant, in a lot of states, it's litigated that it's not legal for teachers to focus on how to think if that leaves out the lowest functioning, and in some cases even special ed students. They have to focus on lessons where they essentially give the students simplistic answers, even if that's unrealistic or undercuts, the important role of learning to think in society. And they can be disciplined or fired if they don't do exactly the opposite of what you were just stating, that I happen to agree with personally, Travis.
Yeah, I know what you mean when education systems, like let's say it's a public good, a public education system, you need to make sure that you have outlets for people, let's say people who are below let's just say it for lack of a better term in this conversation, retarded people. So retarded people are going to need to be able to access education as well. And I think there is a way to form this skeptical curriculum in a way that it can be fundamental and used at these levels. It doesn't have to be, because a lot of what I want to see is people having questions asked to them that challenge their mind and force them to think through things. Like I said, asking a young kid, why is red not blue? Or or is there any kind of situation you could come up with where red can in fact be blue? And then you start talking about, okay, well, what about within the simulation of a game? If you click on blue, if you only just click on blue, it is red. Start moving the mind, and think and questioning and continuing to question anything, including what is emerging out the child questioning what is emerging out of their mind.
See, this gets me kind of the first thing that I thought of when you started going after this is for two things. Is one, when I was younger, I remember I was in like third grade, and I was like second or third grade, and I was making this like star puzzle or whatever the fuck, and I was putting these like stars on it, and I was like, I had to put 5 of them on there, and I put 2 down, and then I went to put the third one down, and I stopped, and I'm like, why is it stuck between 2 and 3 all the time? Like, why can't I find another way to put 5 of these on here without it having to be just 2 and 3? Because I don't like the way I just don't like the way that is combined.
Right.
And I couldn't figure it out because I was a kid, and I asked my teacher that question, and I was like, is there any way to do this without it being 2 and 3? Because I don't like it. Like, I don't know what it was. I just didn't like it. She's like, no, you can't do that. And she just glued it on there for me. And then I started getting pissed off. I'm like, no, it's not. You just did it for me. That's not what I asked you to do.
Dude, I was an absolute nightmare for teachers because I would go through
that's an unreasonable thing to ask a teacher to know how to do for me, but still.
Well, as a student, I would go through the process of testing the skepticism of my teachers. And I was just doing this all the time, and it drove my teachers nuts. It would even be on my report cards. Travis is asking questions or Travis is asking too many questions. Travis is asking questions that aren't in direct relation to the topic. Travis is disrupting the class just to hear his own voice by asking weird, strange questions. And when I was young, I realized I was going through the process of testing the skepticism of the teachers who were making absolutist claims about things. Like they would claim something to know the mind of a historical figure. And I would say, well, hang on a sec. How do you know that they weren't, just doing this to get a girl? When I was thinking about like certain leaders and then we didn't have any, evidence as to this conclusion that the teacher was talking about. And they might pull up an anecdote saying that, well, it was said here that someone would hear this person frequently talking about X. And I said, well, why are we simply just buying what they say? Why can't we just say, well, this person did claim this, but we don't know to any, degree of certainty, degree of high certainty that this was what they were thinking. And this whole process, by the end of it, the teacher would be like, Travis, you're disrupting the course you're disrupting the class. You're not allowing me to deliver what you need to know.
Now, see, I think one of the things that would actually help with that so much is either we need more teachers in general, just completely, we just need more, or we need a way to divide classrooms into being smaller. Because when I started school, from what I can remember, classrooms, like at the very beginning of when I can remember school, classrooms were about 20 kids. And then when I got to about 7th to 8th grade, it was about 25 to 30 kids. And then when I was in high school, each classroom had like 30 kids no matter what.
Right.
And it was like, you can't have a teacher interact with 30 different children 6 different times a day and be able to touch all of them in a way that matters.
Well, Jack, my answer to that is allow children to teach each other. Once you start endowing children with the proper mechanisms that will lead them to thinking properly, they will start sharing that with others. They will start hearing the logical leap that their friend just made and say, hang on a sec, that's circular reasoning. And I'll show you why it is.
I'd like to see what your thoughts are on the idea of Khan Academy-style inverted classrooms. But first, an observation that a friend made when we were probably 40-ish, comparing his education to mine. I got myself kicked out of a public school kindergarten, and then after some psych testing, I could handle it, pushed up into first grade in a private school, except kids.
You're breaking up a bit there, Loki. I'm only getting a bit of what you're saying.
Okay. I got kicked up into private school, grade a year younger than public schools would allow taking students for first grade. He observed when he had used inheritance to go back to school, to med school, and was trying to become a psychiatrist, that going to public schools, a big purpose of the schools was to indoctrinate obedient compliance with authorities, even if they were improperly abusing power. Whereas, I was trained to think and question and be one of the contributors to developing policy or new ideas or science or arts, but at the same time recognize when there were defects or abuses in the systems and tear them apart if that's what they deserved. Whereas the public schools exist to prevent people from tearing stuff apart. And most of the students they're trying to process, with social promotion and, just teachers surviving, dealing with parents who frequently are not adequately supportive, is more like a meat market processing democratic units that can never meet those basic standards of full citizen engagement.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, the job of a teacher, I think what we forget often is that teachers are just trying to do their damn job. They're making a living too, right? And they're told, here's the curriculum, and keep an eye on your kids to make sure they're not losing it. And so keep the classroom in order, help us keep the hallways in order, and teach the damn curriculum as is. And then some teachers go beyond their duty, like my English and theater teacher in high school, where she would do all these extra curriculum plays outside of what she was supposed to, outside of her job requirements, because she loved theater and she loved giving the opportunities to kids. So, I think where I want to intervene and interject is in the curriculum itself, and I don't want to disrupt I don't want to take lightly the other things that teachers have to do. Like, they're tasked with keeping these disorderly, hormonal entities in check. And like I say often, like in high school, when I think back, like I would love engaging when I was testing the skepticism of teachers, but for the most part, man, I was just more interested in the girls that were around me. That was mainly it. And I loved sports and theater because the girls loved seeing me do those things. I think when I kind of grew out of performing, I started realizing that really what I wanted was, the attraction of ladies when I was doing all this stuff. And when as I got older and I started reflecting on this, I was like, well, why did I grow out of wanting to be a performer or an actor or a singer or a songwriter or something like that? Yeah. Sorry, what was that, Kutcher?
Oh, am I coming in?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you had something there. Anyways, I want to jump on a couple questions on YouTube quickly here. Okay, I answered that. Are you happy, Travis, from Clark Davidson? Thanks for the question, Clark. Yeah, very, very happy. I really enjoy life. Sharing ideas, having interesting conversations, is a lot of fun. But I have a lot of happiness in my personal life as well. A lot of freedom. And freedom is, free time is at the top of my want list, even beyond money or I would say even relationship. Free time is at the very top, and I have a lot of free time to, engage in a lot of different disciplines and learn things and test my skepticism. So yeah, this stuff makes me very happy. Clark,
do you mean free time or discretionary time? Do you mean, Travis?
I would say free time, just free time to do what I please. I always wanted to have a career, regardless of how much money I could make or whatever, to be able to just wake up and do what I really, really, where my passion drove me towards. And most days it drives me towards wanting to help humanity in any way that I can and solve problems. I've always loved the idea of solving problems. And so, and other things too, like hockey brings me a lot of joy. I love watching my hockey. I love watching a good fight. I even love getting into the odd fight out on the ice when I still play. And so I love violent sports. I love fighting. I love playing hockey. I love, all this stuff makes me very happy. I love my family. My family makes me very happy. I love playing Call of Duty. Every night I try to play a half hour to an hour session with my younger brother, and we have the best time ever joking around and playing Call of Duty. I love chatting with my older brother about nature, about hunting and fishing, and I love fishing myself. I love being out in nature. All this stuff makes me very happy. If look, maximizing my well-being is something that continues. I am not good at self-care, never have been, and I think that comes from my genetic predisposition to be clinically depressed perpetually, without much forgiveness. And I think it would be very easy for me to allow that to destroy me, but I think I am operating under the right moral foundation that matches. If I could say anything to anyone that suffers from clinical depression, you need to be out there pursuing well-being. It needs to be an activity. You can't just sit there and expect to be well. Hell no. And then people will ask, well, how do you get up off the fucking couch? Well, and that's why I start with, after you get the is and the ought sorted out, you got to look at your artistic and scientific inspirational meters and see where you're lacking. Sometimes I look at my meters in the art side, and I'm an artistic guy. Like, I play piano lots, and then I realize I haven't put my headphones on and watched a concert in a while, or listened to some music. And I put those things on, and my well-being increases by 100%. I just think if we take time to apply skepticism to our current states of mind, and not just like sit there waiting for something to happen, to actually use skepticism to clarify the mind, we can be well, and we can pursue things that make us well. But you have to clarify the mind, or else you won't know how to do that. You won't know what to pursue. But yeah. So just a couple more questions, and we'll get back to the room. Neil B says, "Hey Travis, you should have a skepticism course. It's coming, man. The just so you guys know, my lawyer is now in discussions with YouTube, trying to get our main channel remonetized, and so we'll see what happens out of that. But once that is remonetized and up and going, I will be releasing some courses and some mini examples. That's it's gonna be more of a hard science content channel, and then all of these discussions will happen on this channel. So I hope you guys are subscribed to the new Pangburn Offensive channel. So skepticism course, yes, they're coming. Neil B says, next Pangburn poll, how are you? ? Yeah, that's a good question. The Pangburn polling on YouTube has been amazing. I've really been enjoying the conversations that have been happening out of that. If you guys haven't been there, just go to youtube.com/Pangburn and head over to the community section. Some really cool things. If you guys have an idea for a poll question, send it to me. I will post it. Obviously, if it needs some refining, we can talk about it. But Brittany M asks, do you have any thoughts on the, quote, light sometimes seen during meditation, or any other thoughts on the more, quote, mystical experiences that can occur during meditation? Well, meditation is, when you say light, what I try to do, and maybe this will answer your question, maybe not, but sometimes when I started out meditating, there would be this feeling of light, or feeling this light feeling, but I found that was getting in the way, and it was kind of driving my mind too much. So I tend to like to go, when I meditate, to the center of a black hole, the center of our galaxy, right in the middle of the black hole, sitting on the edge of the singularity, and sit there and just bask in the absolute nothingness of what that is. And try to find complete silence, silence of light, if you want to call it that. Try to remove that. I think anyone who's experiencing that in meditation they're probably not getting as clear-minded as they could be. Because that's just, when I'm thinking about what it means to have a clear mind, I'm wondering, and I'm closing my eyes right now, just trying to think of it. I'm wondering why people are seeing light, and whether that's driven by, probably driven by the imagination, but why, and I'm going through this process right now as I'm closing my eyes. It's like, where does this light come from? Why do people experience the light? And I kind of remember when I was starting off that when I would meditate, I would see this kind of light peering through, but I think it's just the imagination. So, these experiences that occur during meditation, I think it's just our imagination. Cool. Neil B says Sam Harris shat on his followers in latest clip saying they continually misunderstand and can't meditate properly. Interesting. Oh, Sammy. Anyways, back to the discussion here. What else you guys got?
When you were mentioning depression, there are some studies that have come out, showing that the nature of our society, with all its stressors and hypocrisy and conflicts and abuses, is such that, if you're not at least mildly depressed, you probably are not honestly engaging, the important public issues around us. And I know I have counselor and psych, friends who, act like they're very frustrated or annoyed with me because I perpetually push the idea that, it's an essential trait of adulthood and society to be engaged in ways that probably could push some of their patients over the edge to suicide, or frequently people in that profession have their own issues that they're less than forthright or honest about. But how do you see that challenge?
Okay.
Where
Yeah. You bring up something very interesting, and I talk about this, and this will inevitably come up in my first book. But I think humanity is split into two sections on this: the carers and the care-nots. And I think some people have the genetic predisposition to care about the big picture, and some people do not. So, and the way one of the examples I'll use is I talk to people. I would say the majority of people I talk to, or the majority of people I know, will have this attitude of, why do you care so much about what's going on in other people's lives?
Hey man, just let people live. Okay, like, come on, man.
But to people in this room, like, you are all I'm almost certain that all of you are carers, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. Now, how many people in your life would you tell about what you do on Discord to come here and talk about big picture ideas, who would say, so you just sit there and talk? That sounds fucking retarded. Why do you care so much about what's going on? I am not convinced, Loki, that the people who don't have the genetic predisposition to be a carer, I don't think they have the capacity for that. But what they have greater capacity for is being very successful within their care-not bubble, which usually includes their immediate family and possibly some friends in their families.
I think most people develop care when they find its utility. They just don't see a utility at this point for that.
So I think, Bruce, I would say that people still have the care, but I call them the care-nots, as it doesn't extend beyond the immediate interactions in their life. Like, they won't even watch the news. Like, they couldn't give less of a shit what's going on down at town hall. unless it's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
directly
But-
step in their
yeah.
home and infringe something.
That's what I mean.
Important.
They haven't found the utility of it or the use, or the need, because it doesn't affect them.
But my argument, Bruce, is even if you make the argument to them and lay it out crystal clear as to why they should care about, someone else's well-being on the other side of the planet, they're just like, okay, man, you do you.
Yeah, and well, that's the other thing that's a different issue, I suppose. But like the idea that like you do you, like we have no say in anyone else's anything because it doesn't affect us. Well, I mean, depending on the issue, and a lot of issues do affect other people, and so they just haven't thought hard enough about it. That's all that is.
I get
It's also
accused by some of the
complacency.
people who are professional caregivers of being one of the care nots, even though I try to be very engaged and do care. But I engage in issues where part of the social justice and civil and human rights boundaries are at issue, and where there are a lot of people. The whole origin of the idea of SJW, social justice warrior, is essentially a mob bully criminal trying to violate other people's rights while pretending otherwise. I tend to promote obeying standards of fairness and justice that call for shutting down nutcases and crooks like that. And that gets people in the industry of professionally profiting, from psych treatment of sick people, seeing me as not caring, even though I think they're very wrong.
There's also a major element of complacency there, and there's two sides to this in a way, though, because, for example, take a look at the homeless problem, where we've got people on the streets who are not able to afford food and a shelter and all kinds of things that many people take for granted who are living in homes. And we see people are putting kinds of effort into helping people in other countries who are distressed this way, while ignoring them here. I imagine an art drawing a painting of a homeless family standing, looking at an airplane, taking all kinds of food and away to another country to help other people. I think it's important. We need to help our people at home as well, and it's a difficult thing because everybody's hearts are in the right place. They want to help people, and I think if we're helping all the other countries, we're failing to even look after our own in our own country. That's also not a perfect solution to this. It's not the perfect approach.
When you define the care not, a lot like how you define psychopath, where
One thing, Josteen, you're breaking up a bit, brother. If you could talk a little bit closer to your mic, but I know what you're saying here. So you're saying it sounds like psychopath, but the problem with psychopaths is that they don't have here's my argument based on my pleasure drive theory. They do not find empathy or sympathy to be a pleasurable pursuit. That just does not function within them. They understand what it is. They understand it conceptually, but they don't. There's nothing driving them to pursue that as a pleasurable pursuit. So, but I would say that's much different than the care not who has empathy or has they pursue empathy and sympathy towards their immediate family and those around them, generally.
Selective empathy. There we go.
Right. So yeah, and look, those care nots, if you were to ask them whether it makes them upset to hear that people starve on the other side of the world, the care nots aren't going to say that doesn't make them upset. But the point isn't about that. The point is about they don't understand why people care to enough degree to want to talk about it and be active, or be because they'll say like, well, what about your family? What about your, what's going on within your family? Shouldn't you be instead helping out your brother or your sister or your cousin or your aunt with what's going on in them. Like, isn't there enough to deal with within your own family, those around you, as opposed to thinking about these other big issues? Someone asked me on YouTube, what are my top 5 favorite Shakespeare plays? Okay, R&J, Romeo and Juliet, Macker's, Macbeth, Othello. Oh man, how am I going to eliminate? Okay, I have to go with Midsummer Night's Dream for my favorite comedy, and Hamlet. I God, that's hard. I don't get to include The Tempest. I don't get to include Twelfth Night. I don't. Okay, and then I have to say my favorite sonnet as well, which I'm going to read. Sonnet 18. Let's go. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? All right. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often in his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or by nature's changing course, untrimmed. By thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou out'st. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So that's Sonnet 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day, my favorite Shakespearean sonnet.
The old Billy could write.
Yeah, he could. Billy Boy. Man, that guy got a lot of ass.
Probably wasn't too hard for them back then.
So much so that
they didn't know about anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Black Plague's going around.
STDs weren't an issue back then, plague, everything.
Yeah,
no big deal.
They didn't exist. Big deal.
Germ theory wasn't around yet, I don't believe, at that point. I don't know if that's true, though. Maybe he was a recluse kind of dude. I don't know. Was he? I don't know much about him.
He was. So actually, a lot of people are like, oh, Hollywood never gets it right. But Shakespeare in Love, one of the things that made that film so great is that damn near everything so everything about Shakespeare was as true to what we know about history as possible in how Joseph Fiennes played the role of Shakespeare in that play. So he was a very schemy, flighty, sexual individual who found himself around royalty, found himself around some people in high places because of the greatness of his works. And look, when you're in an era where people are just like frothing at the mouth for the next piece of entertainment, like that carries with it some high regard. But he was still an actor and a poet, which is just at the bottom of the barrel of society. But this bottom of the barrel that you will tolerate because of how great his work is. But yeah, the crazy like party and bar scene of that time, like was just rampant. Like people were. I mean, I wonder how many kids Shakespeare actually had. I mean, history will say one thing, but
I don't know, but I don't necessarily think it's any different than now. I think people like to think that man, things were wild back then. Have you been out lately? It's pretty bad here too. It's not any better. So I think that everyone,
well, I would say
forgets that we've been this way forever.
Well, I would say it's
just the way it is.
It's great.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. If you're gonna say people getting around and doing whatever they want to do and just feeling good, well, I think that's been happening most of history.
Oh yeah.
Even in the Puritan societies, people were getting around.
If you look at the Obod extension of Druidry, like order of bards, ovids, and druids, druids might be the intelligentsia, the people who do the equivalent of science and math, research and development, but the bards, could be seen as the traveling minstrel, but also frontline educators who took a serious role in passing that down to the public face and the more common people, so that wouldn't be the bottom of the barrel per se. It would be more like the bottom of the intelligentsia class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but an important part of it that it wouldn't function without.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I think you're right, Loki. In intelligentsia, they're going to look down on the playwrights, but really they kind of were philosophers in their own right of the time. In a lot of
what do you think of the Tarara Boomdier song that I posted the other day? And are you familiar at all with its history going back over a century? And
I'm not at all, actually.
Do a search for that, and look at the sheet music, the university archives discussing it. You might find some interesting history. In the World War II era, my mother was a congregational preacher's kid, church, choir director, and pianist and organist. That was the most risque piece of sheet music she was allowed to buy.
Interesting.
But it's also been used in more modern advertising. But it's not like your average burlesque type cheap artistic shuffle. It's got some interesting cultural background if you study it.
Yeah, that's just interesting, man.
Yeah, and as a musician, it raises some questions about what do you call cultural substance or artistic substance.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, when I think about, like, one thing I've been thinking a lot about is how we would measure in physics or how we would conceptualize the art. And I think the physics representation of art really is just possibility, the realm of possibility, and I would go as far to say absolute possibility. And I think that's something that people who are working on this grand unifying theory have to wrestle with. They can't just avoid it. It's not necessarily just about unifying general relativity and quantum mechanics. There is more to it.
Would you consider Ken Wilber and integral theory as being part of that, or is some oddball off on the side?
Let's take a look at that. I'll do a quick summary of it. So Ken Wilber, integral theory is a meta-theory that attempts to integrate all human wisdom into a new emergent worldview that is able to accommodate the perspectives of all previous worldviews, including so this is about integrating worldviews. I think that's he's wrestling with ought, trying to unify the ought. Interesting.
He's trying to deal with a lot of social and human function issues. The same way you're scratching around a lot of the time, except he's a few years older and he's going off in a few weird directions, but he's clearly one of the brilliant thinkers, but also, by common perspectives, quite a weirdo.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure many would say that about me too.
He's out there way past you, Travis.
Yeah, this is interesting. I have some reading to do now. Oh wow, this is some interesting stuff. When I look at thinkers like this throughout history, it's easy for us to sit and snicker at some of this stuff, but these guys at that time, I think we always have to remind ourselves that we are sitting on the shoulders of giants, and attempting to sort out some of this stuff with what was known at the time is very difficult. This is when like a lot of people who read Descartes and then come into a modern conversation and cite something they think is is an absolute tautology when it just an armchair philosopher can find their way out of it. A lot of this stuff needs a lot of the history of thinking. People should look at it, read it, take it at face value, and then see how it measures up towards our modern understanding of what is and what ought to be, or with regards to your moral ought.
What ought to be is a fantastic progenitor for conversation, for sure. I think you're making a very good point here, and I agree. Unfortunately, I have to head off. I have to go see somebody. But thanks for hosting this. This was a fascinating conversation.
Thanks for stopping by, Randolph.
Anytime. Take care.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. By the way, Ken is seemingly training his potential successor, or at least facilitator, to enable him to not get drained and burned out as he's aging. Corey DeVos is doing some interesting integration of woodworking and 3D printing and machining. If you haven't seen Corey's craft projects like that, that tend to also be revolving around a lot of integral theory, he's worth searching out.
Right. I'm also going to do a video. I haven't really read in depth Eric Weinstein's geometric unity thing. I guess it's a theory of everything. I'm going to do a video on that where I just kind of read through live on the air and give you guys my thoughts. Have you looked into that, Loki?
I've watched a certain amount of him, but sometimes I find his guests better evolved in their thinking than he is. He seems like he's trying to retain certain biases or
right.
And not be entirely clear or honest with his viewers what they are. And I don't really feel like I have more than a partial handle on those.
Yeah.
But I get a sense that they're important to interpret what he's saying a lot of the time, or hasn't quite come to grips with himself.
Yeah, so I've looked at it a bit, and I get what you're saying about Eric, and I tend to agree on his delivery. I think he suffers from some conspiratorial thinking bugs. I think him and his brother both do. I think he would be, and a lot of these thinkers just unfortunately aren't starting with skepticism as the fundamental principle. And I think when you do that, or if you don't do that, sometimes what's going to emerge is just a not well tested or not well thought out idea. But I'll like to see. And Eric will make these claims about like how there's this problem with academia because he uses his experience to underline it, when really what I hear from Eric when he talks about this stuff is that he wanted to be in a certain circle of people and they didn't find his ideas to be interesting enough, and they said no thank you. And he blames it on conspiracy. And I just, I just don't buy any of that. Like, there's no point in invoking conspiracy.
There is in times, because if you look at like what Jordan Peterson championed to help Lindsay Shepherd, or if you look at the way Robin DiAngelo and the whole intersectionality, or
sure, you will find,
or Peggy McIntosh's knapsack. There's a lot of serious conspiracy. Some of it's ad hoc or synergistic and not actively arranged. Some of it is actively arranged. Some of it's more side effects of what people are finding profitable. Or
yeah, so I'm not saying that there aren't examples of this. I'm saying that it's not a problem in academia. It's just some bad actors.
There's enough institutional culture in academia that I would take issue with that and say that it's not one or the other. It's a bit of both, and it's complicated enough that it's hard to put a clear handle on exactly what in ways that would even work well with skepticism tests.
Well, my fundamental thing here is that if someone's going to claim that they're, if Eric's going to claim that there was a bias or something that kept him out of a circle, even though his ideas were the best ideas or great ideas or whatever, I want to see a demonstration of what that system is. And then if one's to say, well, I can't demonstrate it because the conspiracy is hidden too deeply, that just reeks of the conspiracy of the gaps for me.
Okay, I don't know enough about Eric's situation to comment on him personally. I'm talking about in general and situations I'm aware of in academia and activism, and working behind the scenes of a couple of civil rights organizations at times, alongside being in a rather conservative engineering regulated industry. Which, so that puts me as an extremist, but what people perceive as opposite extremes simultaneously. So how does that balance out?
Yeah. The social ape trying to make sense of it all.
I actually test on political compass as just barely left of center, although strong libertarian. But I test as closer to being a centrist than most people who claim that they are one, but end up being way off there.
I have some pretty telltale tests for people to see how centrist they really are.
I challenge that the word meanings are problematic because the words are used in ways that are so disparate or ambiguous that it's a tough field to even discuss critically.
Yeah, and one of the things I look for is to see if someone is using words and labels actually, or if they are using them, like you mentioned, desperately.
I'm both a conservative and a liberal, and neither, and
right.
Under what are recognized as valid, honest uses of those two words, in different, definitions of them that are recognized by the major dictionaries as accurate. So, what does that lead to?
Yeah.
It makes the communication a challenge, or how much of corporate U.S. media, which tends to be right-wing fascist, and pretends that people who are right there with them are left-wingers, when on their political compass grid they're far from it. What does that do to popular perceptions? Or if they use language in ways that meet, the Oxford English Dictionary or Merriam-Webster standards, for lexicography to recognize word meanings. There's multiple fields of publication over periods of time, etc. Do they have the ability to tamper with language and make their own distortions also?
Right. I'm going to take a quick break, guys, but I'm going to leave everything on the air. Feel free to engage. I'll be back in a few.
Okay. Anyway.
All right, dudes, we are back. Do I still got Scott and Dal? Yo, yo, yo. What's up today? No worries. Nice. So what's entailed in a server install? Right. And what is a SQL install? What is the SQL? Okay, Microsoft SQL. Okay. Oh, server monitoring. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Cool, cool. What's the worst job you've ever done? Yeah. What was bad about it? Blowjos. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it would get really hot back there. Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. Right. Interesting. Oh, y- oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. 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 I'm trying to think of how I would answer that. What is the worst job I've ever had? Um, I mean, most jobs I've ever had, like, as long as they allow me to think, like while I'm working, they don't really bother me. Um, but yeah, like customer service jobs where your thinking will be interrupted. Maybe those would be what I would consider worst. Um, yeah. Nice. Right. No, no, no. We're gonna start you with mail on mail called the ozone layer. Right, right, right. A butthole cutter. That is amazing. Dude, I would I would I hope you put that on your resume. That would be fucking awesome. Anyone who has butthole cutter on their resume is getting hired by me. That's funny. Right. Interesting. How about you, Mace? What's the worst job you've ever had? And what makes it the worst job? Oh yeah. Yeah. And do you bask in that dog piling, or do you not like it? Oh, right, right. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that sucks. Like I would love to somehow um upgrade that in your software, like where you could bask in being the individual outside the group. That's a good question. Right. Yeah. 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 Yes, we are. You can't. You oh, you can't say what industry. To edit out buttholes. Oh yeah. Do you find if you had to take anything of value from those seminars or whatever you want to call them, what would you say is the most valuable thing, Mace? Sure. No, seriously, because I think even in engaging in something that you would consider counterproductive, there must be something that emerges out of maybe the people around you or out of that experience that you can find useful. Right. It's just another person. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. So now, has it upgraded your ability to speak in the language of, let's say, who would be your debate opposite in conversation if you were to be talking about these topics? Like, because in discussion, it can be a good strategy to be able to speak in the preferred language of your interlocutor. Yeah. Right. So, like, even if it ultimately would, uh, make you more successful in conversation, do you feel like it's a kick to your ego or something? Right. Yeah. I'm fixing for a fight. Well, here's the thing where, at that point it may be important to have a sub debate about what is the colloquial usage of that word versus okay, you're both using it this way. But if you want to have a conversation about what is the actual usage generally of that term, that may need to be debated. So Live Science just released an article. I can drop that one a day ago. Well, there's major. If you if you think of it, like we're making discoveries in the cosmos every day that are being released at physics.org that are literally fucking like this big. Like it's just the amount of discovery that's happening right now. People just don't even know what it means or what to do with it. Yeah, that's very very recent. Yeah. So that one. So I've been looking at. Yeah, I've been looking at that. They need to do some more robust testing because it could be some of these weird anomalies. Oh, apparently you guys aren't coming through for some reason. Let me see this. Oh shit. Why? Okay. Now what? So yeah, no, it's yeah, that's interesting. You nailed it. You nailed it.